We are very lucky to have here today Peter Clemons, founder and managing director of Quixoticity. Quixoticity, I got it. To share insight from his very broad knowledge base. Thank you so much. The stage is all yours.
Thank you very much. Whoa. Whoa, that's loud. Can everybody hear me? Good afternoon. Thank you to the, well, maybe they'll thank me when I finish the presentation rather than when I'm about to start. What next for critical communication? I wish that I had this fantastic crystal ball and I could predict what's going to happen in the future. I agree with a lot of what Leon and Richard have already said. Fortunately, there's not too much overlap for what you've said, for what I'm going to say today. So Quixoticity is a next generation critical communications consultancy. We deal solely in critical communications, but that's fine, because I've been saying for many, many years that all communications is becoming critical. So to dedicate ourselves to critical communications is to dedicate ourselves to the future of communications. And I think a lot of the suppliers, the operators, everybody are starting to realize now that really all communications in the future will be critical if they're not at the moment. I'm also an ex-director and board member of TCCA, which I see was mentioned already by Leon. So I'll be coming at it, but I've only got 20 minutes, so I'm going to have to move very, very quickly. Values. Values, I could give you a whole separate presentation on axiology, but only the very, very hardened philosophers in the room would be so much interested in that. The important thing is that there are different types of value. And the value that we assign to a Picasso painting is very different to the value that we assign to a fireman pulling a child out of a fire, to the use value of our home, and to the kind of values, universal values, that Mahatma Gandhi was interested in. I'll come back to value towards the last slide. This is critical communications. Critical communications covers almost every aspect of our lives. Unfortunately, a lot of the value within critical communications is hidden deep within the background of the way that we live. And not everybody has understood this. And that's why I'm very happy to have the opportunity to speak today, because I believe that there are more and more players around the world, and very important players, who are starting to understand the importance of critical communications. A quick overview, very, very quick. The past. We're looking at voice-centric communications, push-to-talk, proprietary solutions, users locked into a single supplier, a large range of frequencies that makes interoperability almost impossible. And yet a large percentage of the world is still using this kind of technology because it's not very expensive. Although most of the new deployments are now digital. I think Thomas will tell us about that later. Oh, it jumped. The present. Tetra is still keeping people safe in over 140 countries. DMR is growing rapidly as an analog PMR replacement. There is still considerable investment in North America in P25 because these technologies offer coverage, capacity, interoperability, security, resilience. Control rooms are still optimized for voice calls, but that is beginning to change. There is massive growth in the use of data, video, even mobile payments within the public. The immediate future, which is kind of like the present at the moment, or we have the first public safety eLTE experiments from FirstNet in the US, the ESMCP project in the UK. Qatar has deployed a commercial-based LTE for public safety. And we have the growth of eLTE deployments. And the good news is that Huawei have won their first Tetra award. Even though you don't manufacture Tetra, there is an importance in being able to integrate narrowband, wideband, and broadband solutions. The critical communications LTE standardization work is now underway within SA6, within 3GPP, a new dedicated group to public safety where Huawei, TCCA, and a large number of organizations are cooperating to develop the special features that our community require. There are sector-specific future requirements that we are just starting to articulate, and I believe that if not this year, definitely next year, we will start to see very, very important trends starting to emerge within this space. And if you want to know about the emerging digital economy and the final goal, then you'll have to wait until the end of the presentation. Hopefully I'll get there. I think I will. What are the key components of future critical communications? We need spectrum. Now, some people, because it's very, very difficult to touch, it's these radio frequency waves wandering through. Governments see it maybe as a way of making some money, and companies maybe sit on it in hoping that it will start to increase its value, like a good Picasso painting maybe. We need to keep our existing VHF, UHF frequencies for digital PMR for the foreseeable future. But we also need harmonized spectrum for critical communications LTE. So obviously, the meetings that are going to take place in Geneva in November for World Radio Communications Committee are critical for the future of our industry. So we need as many champions as we can possibly find to go to the national organizations, the regional organizations, the global organizations, to explain to them that, of course, commercial communications, the commercial LTE networks are critical for growth and development in the world. But also, critical communications LTE is equally important. Here this is a slide of the options within the ECC report 218, which is in its final draft at the moment. We have tuning ranges within the 400 megahertz bands for broadband PPDR. But the main options, if we are looking for harmonized frequencies, particularly across Region 1, and more in particular for Europe, are within the 700 megahertz PPDR options. Some countries, in their wisdom, are trying to develop critical communications LTE networks over the existing commercial networks. There are other governments who are seriously looking at finding dedicated spectrum at the beginning and towards the end of the 700 megahertz bands that are going to come up. I believe France and maybe some other countries as well are looking at that. And those of you who are going to attend the rest of Critical Communications World will have the opportunity to talk to organizations, authorities that are looking at options in 700 megahertz. Not every single, there are 48 members within CEPT. It's very, very difficult, and we've realized that it's almost impossible to get consensus on this. So the important thing is to get a certain set of guidelines so that as much as possible, we will have harmonized spectrum, and it will be possible to tune radios within as narrow a band as possible. 700 megahertz key. User requirements. Mission-critical voice services. We still need voice. It may, in 5 years' time, 10 years' time, 15 years' time, voice may only be 1% of the traffic that goes over data networks. But the problem that we have, that mission-critical users have, is that to send a text saying, somebody's pointing a gun at me, please come and help me, is not as effective as, help, I'm in trouble, somebody come, immediately, press the emergency button. That's still the case. The hockey stick curves of data, but voice is an important data. And we have evolved over millions of years to recognize a voice in distress. Push-to-talk, group calls, device-to-device, all of these are services that are being developed at the moment within the critical communications groups. We need fast call setup time, which eLTE should be able to satisfy that. We need connectivity, availability, reliability, interoperability. We need everything we currently get with Tetra. But of course, in the middle here, we have mission-critical data, and we have mission-critical video and multimedia services. And for that, we are going to need the help of 3GPP, the help of Huawei, the help of a wider community. Historically, we've had fragmented markets. Within TCCA, we worked very, very hard on interoperability. And we managed to reach a stage where all the Tetra terminals could communicate with all the Tetra networks, version from version, our IOP testing. And that's very important to keep in the future. There is always a danger when we move to a new generation that a certain amount of interoperability will be lost. But I think from all the messages that we are receiving, the industry understands that for this to be as big and as important as we want it to be, then we need this to be open standards. 3GPP offers economies of scale. It's very much demand-driven. It works release by release. There is always an opportunity to introduce new services into the standard. eLTE is becoming a rich ecosystem, and I'm not the first one here to mention ecosystems today. And of course, we're moving towards a final goal, this 5G era, whatever it is. It's not just, it's speed when we need speed. So if we need connected vehicles or we need robots, then maybe we need that 1 millisecond latency. But it's also being able to take the best solutions that we have today and incorporating them within the future solutions. So it's not switching off Tetra and switching on eLTE or 5G or 3GPP. It is a migration strategy. It's an evolution. Secure by design, privacy by design. There are sector-specific issues. Public safety, even within public safety, police, fire, and ambulance may have different requirements. Local government, transportation, utilities, mining, oil and gas. The need to incorporate legacy applications. Some need encryption, some don't. Some need billing, some don't. Some need to protect their data much more than others. Some need intrinsically safe terminals. Some need underground coverage. But at the same time, we need to bring all of these sectors together. We need smart and secure networks, smart and secure clouds, devices, cities, governments, regions, global cities, everything, converging towards the Internet of everything. Applications, applications, applications. Expectations are very, very high. No, this is what everybody's expecting, and they want it today. Or maybe they can wait until next week. But we also still need all of this. We need train control, voice recording, SCADA, telemetry, positioning, dispatching, AVL. And we need mission-critical voice, as I mentioned, and many, many more narrowband applications. It's quite interesting that 3GPP raced towards high-speed networks. So release 10, release 11, so LTE Advanced. And now they're realizing that with machine-to-machine, with Internet of Things, they actually need to reduce the bandwidth in certain applications. No? They don't need this. This tiny $1 sensor doesn't need to scan 2 by 10, 2 by 20 megahertz. So we need more intelligent networks. We need to work together. What I call false dichotomies. To make money, you need to be secure. There's no contradiction. Some people think, if I need to make my network secure, it's going to cost me more. It's going to cost you a lot more if you deploy a network that isn't secure. I'm deploying a network for professional use. No, these commercial users can't use it. But of course, if there's a terrorist attack, it's the public that need to be able to communicate with emergency services. But of course, emergency services also need to communicate with the public. And I'm giving a presentation on Thursday afternoon where I explain how that might be solved. But I've only got 4 minutes left now, so I'm not going to explain all of that. But we're moving into a world where we have to tie all of this in. There is public data, there is personal data, there are new forms of technology that allow us to tie in. As a critical communications industry, we need to understand this and we need to move towards this without getting rid of what we've got already. Global ecosystem. Governments, regulators, standards bodies, manufacturers, operators, end users, verticals, geographicals. We all need to work together. This is the open economy, the open society. We're moving into a completely different world now. No, where everybody kept their technology. No, this is my technology and nobody else. Nobody else can share my technology, and it's the best. And it costs millions and millions and millions. No, now we're moving towards a user-centric type of network. We're handing power back to the people. TCCA. Okay, it's not chlorine tablets for the swimming pool. It's not the Turkish-Canadian Cultural Association. And it's not an association for tourist cars. They're all TCCAs. Unfortunately, I was the board member when we had to choose the name, and you can imagine, acronyms are just impossible. But TCCA, for everybody in this room, is Tetra and Critical Communications Association. 160 members, networks in 140 countries. We're in North America now. We have set up a broadband group. We liaise with ETSI. We work with 3GPP. And you can find the website at the bottom of the page if you write it down very, very quickly, or if the slides are made available at the end. eLTE Industrial, I don't need to tell you what the alliance is. You're promoting international collaboration and cooperation, developing mobile broadband technology, working together. The critical communications community needs to work with these type of associations. What can we do right now? We can work together in 3GPP SA6. We're already working together. We can help shape the future of the industry by obtaining spectrum in the World Radio Communications Conference in November. We continue to lobby national authorities, international authorities, promote standards, build and maintain the momentum for critical communications, set clear goals, timelines, and milestones. So we have a vision, but how do we get step by step? So where are we heading? Smarter technologies. The younger generation will be smart. Societies will be smart. We have the 5th generation communications requirement. Spectrum, more efficient use of energy, big data, new modulation techniques, hardware replaced by software, which is a problem in itself. New forms of value, incentives, businesses, business models. Again, come to the presentation on Thursday afternoon, and I'll explain more about that as well. All communications become critical. We need the capability to design properly functioning systems. Too many of the systems we use at the moment fail. I was stuck on the metro about half an hour ago. I thought I'm not going to make it, but luckily it started again. The end of work. No? Who wants to go down a mine? Who wants to dig something all day? We want something better for our children than this, but we need to create self-fulfillment, self-enhancement within a safer, less fragile, more supportive global society. We want a fairer balance between economic value and social value. We want to think in a completely different way and use our eyes to see the world in a completely different way. And then maybe we will even get to a new definition of what it is to be human. If we don't, then our children and our grandchildren will. We have a choice. My time is up. Thank you very much.